What if I told you that one man could bring down an empire, not with weapons or armies, but through sheer determination and nonviolence? That's exactly what Mahatma Gandhi did. His story isn't just about Indian independence. It's about how one person's courage can inspire millions to dream of a better world. Today, we're diving into the life and legacy of a leader whose philosophy of nonviolence reshaped nations, inspired movements, and continues to guide us toward peace and justice. From his humble beginnings in India to becoming a global symbol of resistance, Gandhi's journey reminds us that even the smallest act of courage can spark monumental change. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born on October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, a small coastal town in present-day Gujarat, India. Growing up in a devout Hindu family, he absorbed values of tolerance, simplicity, and truth from an early age. His father served as a regional administrator under British rule, exposing young Gandhi to both traditional Indian culture and colonial authority. At 19, Gandhi left India for London to study law, immersing himself in Western ideas while grappling with questions of identity and morality. It was during this time that he began to question societal norms, both in India and abroad, and develop a sense of justice that would define his later years. He joined vegetarian societies, explored religious texts, and wrestled with ethical dilemmas, laying the groundwork for his future activism. But it wasn't until he moved to South Africa in 1893 that his transformation truly began. There, Gandhi faced brutal racial discrimination firsthand, being thrown off trains, barred from hotels, and treated as inferior simply because of the color of his skin. One defining moment came when he was forcibly removed from a whites-only train compartment despite holding a valid ticket. Instead of succumbing to anger or despair, Gandhi resolved to fight injustice, not with hatred, but with truth and nonviolence. This incident marked the beginning of his lifelong commitment to challenging oppression peacefully. Over 2 decades in South Africa, Gandhi organized strikes, marches, and campaigns against discriminatory laws. By uniting diverse groups, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, laborers, and business owners, he demonstrated the power of collective action rooted in moral conviction. When he returned to India in 1915, he brought with him a vision for freedom that would transform the nation forever. To fully understand Gandhi's evolution, it's important to delve deeper into his experiences in South Africa. These years were formative not only for his philosophy but also for his understanding of systemic injustice. For example, Gandhi initially believed that British institutions could be reformed through dialogue and cooperation. However, repeated betrayals by colonial authorities forced him to adopt a more confrontational stance. He realized that true change required sustained, organized resistance, not mere appeals to reason. Gandhi's legal practice in South Africa also played a pivotal role in shaping his worldview. Representing Indian traders and laborers in court, he witnessed firsthand the economic exploitation and social marginalization they faced. This exposure deepened his empathy for the oppressed and strengthened his resolve to fight for justice. By the time he left South Africa in 1914, Gandhi had already become a seasoned activist, ready to take on the monumental task of liberating India. So, what exactly is Satyagraha? At its core, it means truth force or soul force. For Gandhi, it wasn't just a tactic, it was a way of life. Nonviolence wasn't passive, it was active resistance. It required immense courage to face batons, bullets, and imprisonment without retaliation. And yet, it worked. Gandhi believed that nonviolent resistance had the power to awaken the conscience of oppressors. He argued that violence only perpetuates cycles of hatred, whereas nonviolence has a potential to transform enemies into allies. This philosophy wasn't easy to practice. It demanded discipline, patience, and faith in humanity's capacity for good. In South Africa, Gandhi put Satyagraha into action. He led campaigns against discriminatory laws, such as the Asiatic Registration Act, which required Indians to carry identification cards at all times. Through protests, boycotts, and negotiations, he achieved significant victories, proving that peaceful resistance could yield tangible results. These experiences shaped his understanding of how to mobilize masses effectively, lessons he would later apply in India. For example, Gandhi's campaign against the poll tax levied on Indian workers in South Africa united thousands across class and religious lines. They burned their registration certificates in public demonstrations, refusing to comply with unjust laws. Though arrested multiple times, Gandhi remained steadfast, earning widespread admiration for his resilience. These early experiments in nonviolence became the blueprint for larger-scale movements back home. One lesser-known aspect of Gandhi's philosophy was his emphasis on self-suffering. He believed that willingly enduring hardship could inspire others to reflect on their actions and seek reconciliation. This principle was evident in his hunger strikes, which he used sparingly but effectively to demand accountability and unity. For instance, during communal riots in India, Gandhi fasted unto death to appeal for peace between Hindus and Muslims. Such acts of personal sacrifice underscored his unwavering commitment to nonviolence and moral integrity. When Gandhi arrived in India in 1915, the country was simmering with discontent under British colonial rule. Millions suffered under oppressive taxes, economic exploitation, and cultural suppression. Resistance efforts were often fragmented, violent, or ineffective. Gandhi offered something radically different, a mass movement based on non-cooperation, civil disobedience, and unity. One of his earliest campaigns was the Champaran Satyagraha in 1917, where he championed indigo farmers exploited by British landlords. Landowners forced peasants to grow indigo instead of food crops, paying them unfairly and imposing heavy penalties for misquotas. Gandhi traveled to Champaran, gathered evidence of exploitation, and organized protests. Faced with mounting pressure, the British government appointed a commission that ultimately ruled in favor of the farmers. This victory not only improved their conditions, but also established Gandhi as a national leader. But it was his leadership during pivotal moments like the Salt March of 1930 that cemented his place in history. In defiance of the British monopoly on salt production, Gandhi led thousands on a 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea, where they made their own salt. This simple act of rebellion galvanized millions across India and drew international attention to the cause of independence. The Salt March was symbolic yet strategic. Salt was a basic necessity, consumed by rich and poor alike, making the issue universally relatable. By targeting this law, Gandhi highlighted the absurdity of British control over everyday life. Thousands joined the movement, manufacturing and selling salt illegally. Women, who had previously been excluded from political activism, played a crucial role, organizing protests and picketing shops. The British responded with arrests and violence, but the movement only grew stronger. What set Gandhi apart was his ability to unite people from all walks of life. Whether peasants or intellectuals, Hindus or Muslims, men or women, Gandhi inspired them to believe that freedom was possible without bloodshed. He emphasized self-reliance, encouraging Indians to boycott British goods, spin their own cloth, or khadi, and reclaim their economic sovereignty. Through fasting, prayer, and unwavering discipline, he became a moral compass for the nation. Gandhi's methods weren't just symbolic, they were strategic. He understood that nonviolence wasn't passive. It was active resistance. It required immense courage to face batons, bullets, and imprisonment without retaliation. And yet, it worked. The British Empire, known for its military might, found itself unable to quell the tide of peaceful protests sweeping across India. Gandhi's leadership spanned several key movements that defined India's path to independence. First, Non-Cooperation Movement, 1920 to 1922. Gandhi called for Indians to withdraw support from British institutions, including schools, courts, and government services. This campaign aimed to cripple the colonial economy and administration peacefully. Although suspended after the Chauri Chaura incident, where protesters turned violent, the movement marked a turning point in India's struggle. Second, Civil Disobedience Movement, 1930 to 1934. Centered around the Salt March, this movement challenged the British monopoly on salt, a basic necessity. Millions participated, making it one of the largest acts of civil disobedience in history. Third, Quit India Movement, 1942. With World War II raging, Gandhi issued a bold call for immediate independence, urging Indians to do or die. Though brutally suppressed, the movement signaled the beginning of the end for British rule. Throughout these campaigns, Gandhi remained steadfast in his commitment to nonviolence, even when others within the independence movement advocated for armed resistance. His unwavering belief in moral principles earned him respect worldwide, even among those who disagreed with his methods. For instance, during the Quit India movement, Gandhi's slogan captured the urgency of the moment. We shall either free India or die in the attempt. We shall not live to see the perpetuation of our slavery. Despite mass arrests and harsh crackdowns, the movement kept alive the spirit of resistance, forcing Britain to reconsider its grip on India. Another critical milestone was the round-table conferences held in London during the early 1930s. Gandhi attended these discussions as a representative of Indian interests, advocating for dominion status and greater autonomy. While the conferences ultimately failed to achieve their goals, they highlighted the growing international pressure on Britain to grant India self-rule. Gandhi's presence at the negotiating table elevated the profile of the independence movement, showcasing his ability to engage diplomatically while remaining firmly rooted in his principles. While Gandhi's leadership paved the way for freedom, his journey wasn't without challenges or controversy. Beyond the victories, there are untold stories of struggle, division, and sacrifice that shaped not only India's destiny but also Gandhi's legacy on the global stage. As we delve deeper into his impact, we'll uncover how his philosophy transcended borders, inspired future generations, and continues to resonate today. Even though Gandhi's leadership was instrumental in securing India's independence, the final years of his life were marked by immense personal and political challenges. One of the most painful episodes was the Partition of India in 1947, which divided the subcontinent into two nations, India and Pakistan. The decision, driven by escalating communal tensions between Hindus and Muslims, led to one of the largest mass migrations in human history and unimaginable violence. Gandhi had long opposed partition, believing that Hindus and Muslims could coexist peacefully under a unified India. He argued that dividing the nation would only deepen divisions and sow seeds of future conflict. Yet, despite his efforts, the British government and Indian leaders agreed to the plan, prioritizing immediate independence over unity. The aftermath was devastating. Millions were displaced, and hundreds of thousands lost their lives in brutal riots. Entire villages were razed, women were abducted and assaulted, and families were torn apart. Gandhi, heartbroken by the bloodshed, embarked on a series of fasts unto death to appeal for peace. His hunger strikes brought temporary calm, as both communities feared losing the man they revered as a father of the nation. Tragically, Gandhi's vision of harmony could not withstand the tide of hatred. On January 30th, 1948, He was assassinated by Nathuram Godse, a Hindu nationalist who accused him of being too soft on Muslims. The assassination shocked the world, turning Gandhi into a martyr for peace and underscoring the dangers of extremism. Even in death, Gandhi's message endured. His funeral procession drew millions, and his final words, "Hey Ram, O God," became a symbol of forgiveness and faith. But his passing also raised urgent questions about the fragility of unity and the cost of division, questions that remain painfully relevant today. To fully grasp the magnitude of Gandhi's loss, consider the context of post-independence India. The country was grappling with widespread poverty, economic instability, and social unrest. Gandhi's moral authority had been a unifying force, and his absence left a void that no single leader could fill. Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first prime minister, famously said in his eulogy, "The light has gone out of our lives, capturing the collective grief of a nation." Yet, even amid tragedy, Gandhi's ideals continued to inspire. His emphasis on nonviolence, self-reliance, and interfaith harmony laid the foundation for India's democratic experiment. Though the road ahead was fraught with challenges, Gandhi's legacy served as a guiding light for generations to come. Gandhi's impact extended far beyond India's borders. His philosophy of nonviolence inspired some of the most significant social and political movements of the 20th century, proving that ideas rooted in morality and compassion could transcend cultures and continents. One of the most notable examples is the American Civil Rights Movement. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. openly acknowledged Gandhi's influence on their strategies for combating racial segregation and discrimination. King famously said, "Christ gave us the goals, and Gandhi showed us the tactics." He adopted Satyagraha principles, organizing peaceful protests such as a Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington. These campaigns not only challenged unjust laws, but also awakened the conscience of a nation, leading to landmark victories like the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Similarly, Nelson Mandela cited Gandhi as a key inspiration during South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle. Although Mandela initially supported armed resistance, he later embraced reconciliation and nonviolence as tools for healing a fractured society. After his release from prison, Mandela worked tirelessly to prevent retaliatory violence, echoing Gandhi's belief in forgiveness and dialogue. Gandhi's legacy also shaped labor rights movements worldwide. Cesar Chavez, founder of the United Farm Workers Union in the United States, used nonviolent methods to fight for better working conditions for agricultural laborers. Like Gandhi, Chavez emphasized self-sacrifice and moral conviction, going on hunger strikes and leading marches to draw attention to systemic injustices. Beyond politics, Gandhi's emphasis on simplicity and sustainability resonated with environmental activists. His warning, "The earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed," foreshadowed modern concerns about climate change and resource depletion. Today, grassroots movements advocating for ecological balance and ethical consumption often invoke Gandhi's teachings, highlighting their timeless relevance. However, Gandhi's influence wasn't limited to specific movements. It permeated global conversations about justice, equality, and human dignity. From anti-colonial struggles in Africa and Asia to feminist movements demanding gender parity, his philosophy of nonviolence offered a blueprint for challenging oppression without perpetuating cycles of hatred. By focusing on the humanity of opponents rather than their actions, Gandhi demonstrated that even the most entrenched systems of injustice could be dismantled through persistence and empathy. For example, during the U.S. Civil Rights era, Gandhi's principles influenced not only Martin Luther King Jr., but also lesser-known activists like Bayard Rustin, who played a pivotal role in organizing the March on Washington. Rustin, a gay black man, faced discrimination within the movement itself but remained committed to nonviolence, drawing strength from Gandhi's example. Similarly, in Eastern Europe, Gandhi's ideas inspired dissidents resisting Soviet authoritarianism, including figures like Václav Havel, who championed nonviolent resistance against oppressive regimes. In Latin America, Gandhi's philosophy found resonance among indigenous movements fighting for land rights and cultural preservation. Leaders like Rigoberta Menchú, a Guatemalan activist and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, have cited Gandhi as an inspiration for their efforts to reclaim ancestral lands and promote social justice. These diverse applications underscore the universality of Gandhi's vision and its adaptability to different contexts. Despite his monumental achievements, Gandhi's life and legacy have not been immune to criticism. Some scholars and activists have raised valid concerns about certain aspects of his philosophy and personal beliefs, complicating the idealized image many hold of him. One area of debate centers on Gandhi's views toward caste and class. While he championed the upliftment of Dalits, formerly known as untouchables, whom he referred to as Harijans or children of God, critics argue that his approach was paternalistic and insufficient. Ambedkar, a prominent Dalit leader and architect of India's constitution, clashed with Gandhi over issues of representation and empowerment. Ambedkar believed that true equality required structural reforms, including separate electorates of Dalits, a proposal Gandhi opposed, fearing it would further fragment Indian society. Another point of contention is Gandhi's early writings from South Africa, which have been scrutinized for problematic language regarding race. In his younger years, Gandhi sometimes expressed views that aligned with the racial hierarchies of the time, though he later evolved significantly in his thinking. Critics argue that these statements reflect a complex relationship with race and privilege, complicating his status as a universal symbol of equality. Additionally, Gandhi's emphasis on celibacy and asceticism has drawn mixed reactions. While some admire his discipline and commitment to self-control, others find his practices impractical or alienating. For instance, his experiments with celibacy, including sleeping naked near young women to test his resolve, have been criticized as inappropriate and unnecessary. It's important to acknowledge these critiques while recognizing Gandhi's broader contributions. No historical figure is perfect, and Gandhi himself would likely agree that his journey was one of constant learning and growth. By engaging critically with his legacy, we honor the complexity of his life and ensure that his ideals remain open to interpretation and adaptation. In an era marked by polarization, conflict, and environmental crises, Gandhi's message feels more relevant than ever. His philosophy offers practical solutions to some of the most pressing challenges of our time, reminding us that courage doesn't come from wielding power. It comes from standing firm in your convictions, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Consider his emphasis on sustainability. Decade before the term climate crisis entered our lexicon, Gandhi warned, "The earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed." His advocacy for simplicity, self-sufficiency, and respect for nature offers timeless wisdom for addressing modern challenges. Today, movements promoting zero waste, renewable energy, and mindful consumption echo Gandhi's call for a harmonious relationship with the planet. Gandhi also reminds us of the importance of dialogue and empathy. In a world quick to resort to hostility, he showed that listening, understanding, and finding common ground can bridge divides. As he once said, "An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind." This principle applies not only to interpersonal conflicts, but also to geopolitical disputes, urging us to seek resolution through diplomacy rather than destruction. Furthermore, Gandhi's life teaches us that leadership isn't about titles or positions, it's about service. He lived humbly, wore simple clothes, and prioritized the needs of others over his own comfort. In doing so, he became a beacon of hope for millions. His example challenges us to rethink what it means to lead, not by commanding authority but by inspiring action. Take, for instance, the growing movement for corporate social responsibility. Companies worldwide are increasingly adopting Gandhi's principles of ethical business practices, emphasizing transparency, fairness, and environmental stewardship. Similarly, educators are incorporating lessons on nonviolence and empathy into school curricula, fostering a new generation of compassionate leaders. Even in everyday life, Gandhi's philosophy encourages us to examine our choices and behaviors. Whether it's reducing waste, supporting local communities, or standing up against injustice, each small act contributes to a larger ripple effect. Gandhi believed that individual actions matter profoundly, that change begins at the grassroots level and spreads outward. Mahatma Gandhi's legacy is a testament to the enduring power of nonviolence, resilience, and moral courage. He didn't just lead India to independence. He redefined what it means to fight for freedom, with love instead of hate, with compassion instead of vengeance. As you reflect on Gandhi's life, ask yourself, what injustices do I see around me? How can I stand up for what's right? Not with anger, but with purpose. Like Gandhi, each of us has the ability to make a difference, whether through small daily actions or larger commitments to justice. Let us carry forward his dream of a world where truth prevails, where peace reigns, and where humanity rises above division. After all, as Gandhi reminded us, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Subscribe and welcome to the Empire.